Hello everyone, welcome to theCUBE studio here in Palo Alto. I'm John Furrier, host of theCUBE. We are here to celebrate the Tech Innovation CUBE Awards, where all the winners are coming on the program. Our inaugural program of the CUBE Awards. I'm going to do another one this year. It was such a big success with 43 judges. The competition was fierce and we received a lot of huge, exceptional number of high caliber entries, showcasing the incredible innovation across the tech landscape. Today we're joined by David Flynn, CEO of Hammerspace, to discuss the award-winning entry they had behind the innovation in one of the most contested categories. In fact, it's the hottest category, top data storage innovation. David, congratulations. Thanks for coming on. Great to see you. You've been a CUBE alumni since 2010, 2015.
Back in the Fusion.io days.
Fusion.io founder.
Glad to be here, John. Thanks.
Well done. Again, Hammerspace, remember when you started the company, we chatted. You told me about the vision. Unifying was a big thing. I want to get into it, but before getting into it, this category was so competitive because storage right now with AI is huge, because a lot of the big players, the top 6 customers, the CapEx spend's high, enterprise is booming. You saw the NVIDIA earnings recently, yesterday. Enterprise, Dave Vellante and team on CUBE Research predict $1 trillion market in the enterprise when you throw in everything, power and cooling. At a 15% CAGR over the next 10 years. Massive growth. Yeah, that's huge numbers.
Crazy.
Back in the enterprise, it never left. It kind of went to the cloud, but now it's connected and it's distributed computing. So you got data storage continuing to surge. But Amazon earnings, you know, you're looking at their earnings, storage is booming for them too.
But I have to correct you on something. Despite the award, we're not a storage company any more than VMware was a server company. We're the abstraction layer. We have storage interfaces in, storage interfaces out. So in a sense, you could call it a storage company, but
the top data platform.
There you go. Data platform would be a.
Yeah, I mean, the competitors out there, you know who they are. They have a storage component. Right. Again, this is when you started Hammerspace. Share the vision of Hammerspace initially and where you started and where you are today, because I think it's important for people to understand there's huge growth in storage as a category, but that's not the story. The story, it's the data layer, it's the software behind it, and it's the macro and also the macro tech environment is more diverse and needs that scale. Explain the vision.
So the vision is you should be able to have your data at the highest velocities from whichever data center and have it be the same data, even as it moves across systems, across sites, and through time. It's got to be always in the same logical place. The same way when you switch your iPhone, you can find everything where you last left it because it lives in a logical or virtual place. That same thing has to happen now with the enterprise exabyte scale data, to where it's simply omnipresent and preserved through time, not through putting it to rest into storage, but by having it live orchestrated in motion.
Scope the challenge on this, because that's a great example of the iPhone, because it simplifies the thinking. Scope the degree of difficulty, okay? Because most people might not understand how hard it is to actually do that.
Yeah.
Because storage, you move something, you store it. It's like put it in the file cabinet. Then you got to go get it, and it's the latency involved. We're talking about
having it sit there stored is trivial compared to having it be constantly in motion and continually accessible.
And talk about the scope of the challenge, because the impact of the demand now with generative AI, because the word generative is the word intentionally there.
Making a lot of data.
It's basically querying at runtime an answer that wasn't pre-programmed. So like a lot's going on at the new, the expectations of the applications are different. Scope the challenge and then
So to make this happen, we had to solve some of the industry's longest standing, most intractable problems. And the first is actually the linchpin for the others. The first one is bringing supercomputer parallel file system architecture into the world of enterprise standard NAS. That was attempted 15 years ago with parallel NFS, failed miserably because performance was a niche. The existing NAS vendors already had their file systems. They weren't parallel file systems. It would have been throw it out and rewrite, and they're very wedded to them. It takes a decade to harden a file system. So they had a conflicted interest and not a good commercial reason to deliver on it. And then it was a standards body effort. And so this—
a lot of friction.
This failed, and that is about the time I left Fusion.io, and I said, it's not the wrong idea. It's just a little bit ahead of its time, and it's conflicted in the motivation. So I went and recruited the Linux kernel maintainer of the network file system stack, the part of Linux that does this, and said, let's go fix it, let's introduce it into the standard, let's build it into Linux, and then let's build the premier data platform to use this new protocol. So that was intractable problem number one, what the industry as a whole failed at. They failed so miserably that even to this day, people don't believe us when we said that we make it work. Anybody who knows what they're saying say, oh, that'll never work.
Yeah, they have
would
scar
never
tissue.
Work. They have scar tissue, yeah. We have to fight the ghosts of dead companies past because of this, right? But that is only the linchpin. What it unlocks is the ability to build a truly unprecedented level of scalability in a very robust, feature-rich NAS system. That's what we call hyperscale NAS. And hyperscale NAS, while it's built on parallel NFS, actually represents a fully feature-rich, robust NAS system. But even that is really just the starting gate, because the next thing you can do is, due to this architecture, you can now have data live anywhere and have it be the same logical place, because it separates metadata from data. It allows it to stay the same thing. It's like separating the what from where. And now, even though the where changes, what stays the same.
Why is it important? Because I mean, we see stories all the time. We actually write a lot of them on theCUBE and SiliconANGLE. Moving data costs money. Also, there's also...
Not moving data costs you more money.
Explain
it's the data gravity that's the biggest thing, because it's what keeps you vendor locked. It's what keeps you stuck.
So there's
what compromises the productivity of your teams. It keeps your GPUs from having the data that they need. Having data be stuck in storage is the cardinal sin.
So that's where people have to take it from storage and move it to somewhere else.
To storage somewhere else, and it's a copy. And it's a different piece of data.
So talk about why the problem is this. So that's one problem, and then David gravity is the other one. What's the implication?
Well, and that's really this next long-standing intractable problem is the whole concept of having a single namespace which stays the same even though the data moves physically across different systems. Having data live distributed on a physical basis, but logically be unified. And so these other innovations are really just to get there to where data can now live physically distributed. And then another one is being able to render that data in multiple facilities simultaneously and have it be the same data locally accessible from everywhere. The paradox I like to use is, how can you have your data in every place that you need it without ever having copied it? Because in an orchestration platform, those aren't copies. They are instantiations of the one same logical thing. And that is incredibly important for productivity of people and systems.
So, you know, if I put my kind of skeptical hat on, I would say, man, that sounds like it's going to cost a lot. Okay, because I'm storing data, I'm not copying it. So what is the cost side of this? What's the economic value?
Well, it's threefold, right? Obviously, there's the utilization angle. You'll get much better utilization when data can flow freely and live exactly where it's best suited at that point in its life cycle, right? Put the cold and cheap stuff on the stuff that's cold and cheap, the hot stuff on the stuff that's high performance. So just getting the data where it's supposed to be. But I'll tell you, the cost savings from improved utilizations, that is the least of the motivators for using a data orchestration platform. The main motivator is increased productivity of people and systems. And nowadays, GPUs, so hard to come by, so expensive. I think Jensen said that's his cardinal sin, is the GPU sitting idle.
Yeah.
Well, that comes back to my sin of having data stuck in storage.
Yeah.
Because it's not delivered to the GPU where it's not idle.
And the applications are demanding it. Hence, the Gen AI is only as good as the data that it can get and use at low latency.
And that's the thing that's so watershed about all of this, is that with AI, machines can now make sense out of what was otherwise garbage data, unstructured data, the bulk of data, things with rich media, you know, things that it used to take a human to even perceive what it was. Now that machines can do that, suddenly it's a gold mine. Yeah. With all of this data being valuable.
Talk about the market opportunity now, because we're seeing storage platforms and data platforms that have kind of come together because they become one, because it truly is a data platform, because they have to kind of be available all the time. I mean, we've talked about.
Well, I would make the argument, it's hard to be a data platform as a storage company, because, well, you're conflicted. because inherently storage companies want to be the thing to hold the data. So they benefit from data being trapped in that silo. They benefit from data gravity, right? As an orchestration layer, we move data across those systems. We make it so that data is no longer having a tendency to stay stuck where it was.
So they're optimizing for the wrong thing. It's funny you mentioned that. I think of a search example, Google. Google had a thesis back 20 plus years ago. Their goal was to get the user off the site as fast as possible because their thesis was help them find what they're looking for.
Interesting.
And so
their productivity,
if they can get their answer faster, that was the value of search, which is everyone else was going the other way, which is stay on site and search and stay on the platform. Google ended up winning everything because everyone was going this way.
So it's all about productivity. And you could say the same thing here. Our goal is to be so transparent that people don't even know it's there. And you know, I like how the team at Meta put it, black voodoo magic, because it let them go from one data center to another with only like 3 minutes of downtime. Even though it took many days for all the data to move, they were accessing it immediately.
So you got the award, it's an innovation award. We've been following your company. Success is happening. You're getting some great traction. Congratulations.
Super excited
Who's
about
buying, who's using it? Share some examples of where you're in play right now. Where's the value proposition? What's the environments look like? Who are the, I mean, you don't have to name names, but you can say large social network.
Let's say
that's multiple platforms, messaging apps and social network. Or explain who your customers are and why they're buying.
Well, what we've done is we've built for the biggest and the best, and that makes it easy to sell to the rest, because if you can do those large-scale challenges where it's thousands and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of GPUs, then everything else becomes easy. So the most, prominent customers now are those who are building LLMs. And a lot of the major names you would hear have used Hammerspace in those workflows and continue to use Hammerspace. So in the world of AI and so forth, the large language model training is, of course, exemplar number one. And Meta has blogged about it, so I can talk about it, their use of Hammerspace inside of their infrastructure. And it's deployed by the guys that actually build their own warm storage and all of that. So this is really quite a compliment that a team as competent as Meta.
They're strong. They're alpha, totally alpha on this large scale.
And there are others we can't speak about there.
How about the enterprise?
In the enterprise space, that's exciting. You have folks in the financial services space, in the bio and life sciences space, obviously in the media and entertainment world. My son is a big fan of the Dogman comic books. There's a new Dogman movie out. It was just recently in movie theaters. And that was done almost entirely on Hammerspace by one of these studios.
So in the enterprise, the hot trend right now, I want to get your reaction, since you're here, get your reaction to it, is that Dave and I are tracking these AI clusters. Dell calls them the AI factories. NVIDIA does the same name. But they're basically servers put together. And a lot of things you did at Fusion I/O are kind of like in play in all these architectures.
Well, the NVMe. I mean, my baby from Fusion I/O is now a $500 billion a year industry, the NVMe. And every single GPU server comes with boatloads of NVMe that sits there almost useless because it's a local island of storage. With Hammerspace, all of that can become shared.
I wanted to ask you that because you have that unique history and being a pioneer in that part and clusters. As these enterprises start putting these systems together, they got to start running software on it. But one of the big pieces, which is coming from the market, but there's a big storage fabric and all that, data fabric. What's your angle on this? Because when I say storage, I mean it's basically connection points.
So here's the beauty. Because we fix that parallel NFS and make the standard stuff work and what's built into Linux, what that means is that you don't have to have any custom software. Not just on the client, but not even on the storage server. It can all just be Virgin Linux. And Hammerspace sits as a control plane separate on the side. And that's what makes it so foundationally different, is that we can aggregate storage systems en masse, as primitive as just white box Linux, and even the NVMe that's inside of the Linux servers that are your GPU servers. We call that tier 0. So you can incorporate tier 0 into the greater data environment.
So you're native, essentially, because of the Linux
it's native
innovation.
Linux.
You can just plug in Hammerspace And it kind of takes
You spin up
over.
Hammerspace on the side, you
It takes over the
register
store.
all of those Linux storage servers serving standard NFS to Hammerspace, and we turn all that into one big shared
Yeah.
orchestrated data environment where data can flow into S3, can flow between data
So you're
centers.
unifying all that
Yeah,
into Hammerspace.
that's right. Yeah, and
Is that discovered automatically? You have to manually do that.
so today you have to take your different storage assets and tell the control plane about them, and then it will manage
Which is not
the
that
data
hard to do.
distributed on it. Yeah.
I mean, it's not that hard to do.
In the cloud, there are some interesting things you can do with basically having Hammerspace scale up and down and spin up cloud instances to provide higher performance or more high performance storage capacity, or spin down and have the data get tucked away into object storage automatically.
Every company has a secret sauce, DNA in their culture. You know,
Okay, yeah.
faster, smaller, cheaper. If you're Intel in the old days, now you got NVIDIA. Has a big vision. What's Hammerspace's secret sauce?
Well, the secret sauce and what led to it being very difficult to get funding for the company is that we're using these architectural innovations that the industry failed to do to be able to deliver higher performance, much more agile, universal data access. And people used to think data management, moving data around, was the antithesis of getting higher performance. Data management systems slow things down. So, our unique thing is that by using this architectural innovation, we're able to deliver on much more agile access to data from anywhere at incredibly high performance rates.
So you had probably a lot of skeptics during the early days.
It's really only been in the last year or so that we've had enough proof points with the likes of Meta, Los Alamos National Labs, that we could go and say, no, it actually works.
So Andy Jassy used to say to me all the time on theCUBE and off camera, you have to be misunderstood for a long time if you're doing something really big because people won't get it. Was there a point in time in your journey, obviously winning the award is an accomplishment here.
Yeah.
Was there a moment in time, a distinct moment a turning point where it turned? Was it a deal? Was it a breakthrough for Hammerspace? Take us through any point in time where you can remember and say, it was that time I was drinking the coffee and I had the idea, or a customer bought this, or investor got it.
Yep. Well, a successful startup has a sequence of those on different dimensions. Having a lighthouse customer like a Meta is clearly one of those watershed events. Having investors jump in and lend a hand, especially when they had been resistant because it was too bold and big of a vision to start with, or just landing the key team members. I mean, if you really want to go back to it, it goes back to my discussions with Trond Mikkelbust, who's the Linus Torvalds appointed gatekeeper of this part of the Linux kernel, and convincing him that, even though the rest of the industry had abandoned the core tech that was going to be needed, that we could go and do it. So recruiting the team, bringing in the financial assets, getting the customers, but the one that sort of still remains is getting the word out there that you can have your cake and eat it too. That such a thing as this that was thought of as impossible can actually do what it purports to do.
Yeah, as a successful entrepreneur, obviously you get great pedigree. We've been following your career. You've been with theCUBE for 15 years and our journey too. There's always moments where, things spin in the right direction, and timing's everything.
Timing is everything, yeah.
And what's going on right now in the market? Where are we now? Obviously, a lot of entrepreneurs out there, whether they're startups, the journey's hard, right? And there's moments, times where you say, okay, you're either too early or you're too late. Timing is hard to time the market in anything, everyone knows that. But just for in general.
Well, the key thing is that when I started the project, because it takes a decade to build a commercially hardened enterprise file system. That's just for a traditional file system and storage. Now, to go build a data orchestration platform, multi-site access, all of that, it takes a long time to build this. So we had to start a long time ago, and it required a level of confidence that at some point the industry is going to need the kind of high performance and agility of access across sites. And AI, it only arrived, 2 years ago, 18, 24 months in earnest, and it really is the forcing function to cause the industry to grapple with, these demons that have been there, these undelivered promises of having universal access to data from anywhere at high performance levels.
And a lot of competing interests, baggage, standard.
There's definitely there's definitely innovator's dilemma, conflicts of interest.
Yeah, I
with a
mean,
lot
the
of
market
people.
shifts.
Yeah.
When it flips, you got to be on the right side of the history here. Clearly, the AI has opened up everyone's eye. They see now application benefits with generative AI. Where's your growth market now? As you guys continue to succeed, what's the target? What's your growth strategy?
Yeah. Well, sort of in keeping with this do everything mantra, obviously AI represents the ability to have some very large customers that can help the company prove itself and finance itself. But the real business is going to be sort of further down the pyramid, enterprise mid-range, because these are problems that everybody wrestles. Even the smallest of companies has issue with data being localized, and how do they own and control their data, right?
David, great to have you on, and congratulations on winning the award, Hammerspace. Again, it was a tough category. A lot of players out there.
We are extremely honored from the recognition, and it's very appreciated.
And I thought it was going to be our first awards, the CUBE Awards. You've been cubed, which is fine. A nice acronym. I want to thank our team at BAVA for that one. We thought me and Dave and Rob Hofen and Kristen and team might judge. 43 judges.
I was going to say, it wasn't just you guys judging, because I know you guys too well, and I wouldn't be as flattered. But if you're saying me there was like 47 other people who were having a say in this. And
even if I wanted to rig it for you, okay. It wasn't. We had AI, people running AI labs. We had Anand, who runs AI at New York Stock Exchange, their Center of Excellence. We had CTOs. We had other analysts.
Wow.
The outreach,
it's a deep honor. Yeah.
I think we actually might have more, and ultimately, I think in the future it could be even on the blockchain, but we're going to open this up again in the second half.
Oh,
so you always worry about inaugural awards because at least you have one, and it might not happen again, but we're definitely doing it again.
Well, I hope to be a part of that down the road.
Yeah, we'll see. And here's some financing news for you coming. Any kind of news coming? You want to? You're smiling.
There's some very interesting things going on right now on that front, and super excited. We'll definitely have to get together and talk about it.
We should do a session talking about the Fusion IO and how that relates to all this great success in these AI factories, because a lot of that systems work is back. I mean, it's really kind of an amazing time for systems thinkers.
Yeah, there's a lot of dramatic things going on with Flash, for example, now actually becoming the capacity tier, not just the performance tier, because of the power shortage, thanks to GPUs. So we're seeing some major industry shifts, back in my area of solid state and Flash.
Well, let's do a deep dive sometime. Again, congratulations to you and your team. Of course, the CUBE Awards really highlights the tech innovation in the industry and celebrating the winners in this inaugural program. The competition was fierce, and of course, we're doing it again the second half of the year. I'm John Furrier, host of theCUBE. Thanks for watching.